They've been hiding the truth from you for far too long. I'm not talking about your everyday lies. This is the kind of secret that will completely flip your world upside down. Imagine for a moment that everything you were ever taught about death is a load of bull. Yep, you heard that right. Today we're diving into a secret FBI document that reveals exactly what happens after you die. And I'm not sugarcoating it, no BS here. Now I know what you might be thinking. How could the FBI be involved with something like this? Well, buckle up, because what you're about to hear will challenge everything you thought you knew. For decades, we've been told that death is the final curtain call, that when your body shuts down, that's it. Game over. But what if I told you that there's evidence hidden away in a declassified FBI file suggesting that death is actually a doorway? A gateway into a whole new realm of existence where consciousness doesn't just flicker out, but transforms into something entirely different. This isn't just some wild theory thrown around in late-night conspiracy forums. We're talking about an official document from the FBI, a government agency known for digging into some of the most mysterious and unexplained phenomena out there. This file isn't just a collection of scribbled notes or vague theories. It's packed with detailed observations, experimental data, and accounts that suggest our understanding of death is seriously flawed. And here's the kicker. This isn't about spiritual mumbo-jumbo or wishful thinking. It's about hard-hitting research that connects dots between science, paranormal phenomena, and even ancient beliefs. So what exactly does this document say? According to its pages, death isn't the end of the road, it's a transition. It tells us that when your body dies, your consciousness doesn't just vanish into thin air. Instead, it shifts, it transforms, and it moves on to a different state of being. Think about it. If energy can't be created or destroyed, then the spark that makes up your mind and soul must go somewhere. And this document claims that it doesn't just disappear. It evolves into something we can barely imagine. Before we get into the nitty-gritty details of the document, I want you to take a moment to really think about the implications of this. If death is just a transition, then everything you've been taught about life, loss, and the finality of existence is incomplete. This secret FBI file challenges the mainstream narrative and forces us to question the very nature of our reality. And trust me, once you start peeling back these layers of deception, there's no going back to the old way of thinking. In the next few minutes, we're going to break down this explosive document, examine its contents, and explore the mind-blowing theories that come with it. By the end of this journey, you might just see death and life itself in a completely different light. So stick with me, because what you're about to discover isn't just another conspiracy theory. It's a glimpse into a truth that has been kept hidden for decades, and it's about to change everything. Let's rewind a bit and set the stage. The FBI is known worldwide for its role in keeping us safe and investigating crime. But what many don't realize is that behind the scenes, they've also been digging into some pretty wild stuff. You might have heard about projects like MKUltra or seen hints about paranormal research in declassified files. And now, we're adding another layer to that mystery. A secret document that reveals what happens after we die. For years, the government has been involved in researching not only crime, but also phenomena that go way beyond what you'd expect from a typical law enforcement agency. The FBI, along with other branches of the government, has long been fascinated by the unexplained, whether it's UFOs, psychic phenomena, or even the mysteries of the human mind. And in the midst of all this, there was one question that kept coming back. What really happens when we die? Historically, the idea of life after death has been a topic of deep interest for both scientists and spiritual thinkers alike. Ancient cultures, from the Egyptians to the Buddhists, had their own interpretations of what came next, often describing death as a journey or a transformation rather than a simple end. Fast forward to the modern era, and while science has given us incredible insights into the mechanics of the universe, it has yet to provide a clear answer to one of our oldest questions. Is there life after death? Now, you might wonder why an agency like the FBI would care about something as abstract as what happens after you die. Well, here's the deal. When you're dealing with national security and understanding the limits of human potential, you need to know everything, even the stuff that sounds outlandish. If human consciousness can survive the death of the body, it opens up a whole new realm of possibilities. Could it mean that our minds can operate beyond time and space? Could it be that there are hidden dimensions accessible only to those who know how to tap into this secret knowledge? These aren't just idle questions. They're the kind that government agencies have been quietly exploring for decades. Over the years, several government documents have hinted at these ideas, suggesting that there's more to death than meets the eye. There were investigations into paranormal events, studies into the nature of consciousness, and even experiments aimed at harnessing the power of the human mind. The FBI's secret file fits right into this tradition. It's like a missing piece of a massive puzzle that, once put together, challenges everything we thought we knew about mortality. The journey to declassification is another interesting part of this story. You see, not all documents get declassified overnight. There's a whole process behind it, with information being hidden away for decades until it's deemed safe for public release. In this case, the file we're discussing finally saw the light of day after years of being tucked away in government vaults. And why would they declassify something so explosive? Some say it's because the truth was too powerful to keep hidden forever, while others believe it was only a matter of time before curious minds demanded answers. So, before we jump into what the document actually reveals, let's acknowledge the bigger picture. The FBI's secret file isn't just an isolated piece of evidence, it's part of a long history of government research into the unknown. And it ties into centuries of human curiosity about what lies beyond the veil of death. With that in mind, we're ready to take a deeper look into the document itself and uncover the shocking claims it makes about the nature of life, death, and everything in between. All right, let's take a closer look at the heart of the matter, the secret FBI document that has sparked so much debate. This isn't your average government memo or run-of-the-mill report. It's a file that delves into what really happens when the body stops functioning. And believe me, the details inside are as jaw-dropping as they are provocative. When you first open this document, you're met with a series of technical terms and redacted sections that might seem impenetrable. But once you start to peel back the layers, a fascinating picture begins to emerge. The document is filled with observations, experimental data, and even first-hand accounts from subjects who underwent near-death experiences. It seems clear that the investigators were not merely content with the conventional wisdom that death is the end of everything. Instead, they were exploring the possibility that what we call death might be more of a transition, a passage from one state of existence to another. One of the recurring themes in the document is the idea of vibrational states. The report describes how, when the body shuts down, the energy that makes up our consciousness doesn't simply vanish. Instead, it appears to change its vibrational frequency, shifting into a state that defies our everyday understanding of physical reality. This concept might sound like it belongs in a science fiction novel, but it's actually rooted in some basic principles of physics. We all know that energy cannot be created or destroyed, it only changes form. The document suggests that the energy of our consciousness follows the same rule. When our bodies die, that energy isn't lost, it transforms, moving into what the investigators call a higher vibrational plane. Throughout the report, there are detailed descriptions of experiments and case studies designed to capture these phenomena. In one section, the document recounts the experiences of several subjects who were on the brink of death. These individuals reported sensations that were difficult to explain in purely physical terms. They spoke of feeling an overwhelming sense of peace, of leaving their bodies behind, and even of perceiving vivid, otherworldly landscapes. Some described moving through tunnels filled with brilliant light, while others recalled encountering entities or presences that seemed both familiar and inexplicably wise. The language in these accounts is strikingly similar to descriptions found in near-death experiences reported around the world. But here's where the document takes things further. It doesn't just catalog these experiences. It attempts to analyze them from a scientific perspective. The investigators noted that many of these experiences were accompanied by measurable changes in brain activity. For example, they observed spikes in certain types of electrical activity in the brain just before a subject's reported transition, suggesting that there might be a quantifiable link between the dying process and these altered states of consciousness. What's particularly intriguing is how the document treats these findings. There is a cautious tone throughout, a recognition that while the data is compelling, it doesn't provide a definitive answer to one of humanity's oldest questions. What happens after we die? Instead of offering a neat, conclusive explanation, the report leaves us with more questions. It hints at a possibility that our consciousness is not confined to our physical bodies, but may be part of a larger, interconnected field of energy that transcends space and time. One of the most revealing parts of the document is where it draws parallels between these experimental observations and ancient spiritual teachings. The investigators point out that many traditional cultures have long held the belief that death is not an end, but a transformation. They reference texts and rituals from civilizations as diverse as the Egyptians, Hindus, and indigenous tribes of the Americas, all of which describe death as a doorway to another realm of existence. By juxtaposing modern experimental data with these age-old beliefs, the document suggests that there might be a fundamental truth underlying both science and spirituality. In another section, the report delves into the mechanics of what happens during these transitions. It outlines a series of steps, starting with the initial shutdown of the body's critical functions, followed by a rapid change in the electromagnetic fields generated by the brain. The document hypothesizes that these changes might serve as a trigger, enabling the shift of consciousness from its physical carrier to a non-physical state. Although the language is technical, the core idea is both simple and profound. If the energy that constitutes our consciousness is conserved, then it must go somewhere when our bodies die. And according to the findings in this document, it appears to be moving into a realm that operates on a completely different frequency, a realm that defies our standard concepts of time and space. The document also takes a hard look at the limitations of our current scientific understanding. It argues that mainstream neuroscience, with its focus on the physical brain, might be missing a key piece of the puzzle. The investigators suggest that while brain activity is undoubtedly a critical component of our conscious experience, it might not be the whole story. There's a possibility, they propose, that consciousness is a fundamental aspect of the universe, one that exists independently of the brain. This idea, while controversial, isn't entirely new. In recent years, several researchers have begun to explore the concept of quantum consciousness, which posits that the mind could be linked to the deeper, more elusive aspects of reality described by quantum physics. One experiment highlighted in the document involved subjects who were clinically close to death, where doctors observed a dramatic drop in blood flow and oxygen levels. In these moments, the subjects reported experiences that were remarkably consistent: a profound sense of detachment from their physical bodies, a feeling of weightlessness, and the sudden appearance of vibrant, almost hyper-real imagery. The report includes detailed logs of these experiences, along with corresponding physiological data. This correlation between subjective experience and measurable changes in brain activity lends a degree of scientific credibility to the claim that something extraordinary is happening at the moment of death. Yet, despite the wealth of data, the document remains appropriately cautious. It doesn't claim to have all the answers or to have fully deciphered the mystery of what happens after we die. Instead, it presents its findings as a starting point, a tantalizing glimpse into a phenomenon that is as vast and complex as it is poorly understood. The investigators stress that more research is needed, calling for further studies that could one day provide a more comprehensive understanding of these processes. Their tone is one of humble inquiry, acknowledging the limits of current technology and knowledge, while urging the scientific community to keep an open mind about the possibilities. One can't help but feel a sense of wonder when reading through these pages. The document challenges us to reconsider long-held assumptions about life and death, inviting us to imagine that the moment we die might not be the end of our existence, but rather the beginning of a new chapter. It's a perspective that is both liberating and, for some, unsettling. After all, if the energy of our consciousness truly persists beyond the confines of our physical bodies, then the implications for everything from personal identity to the very nature of reality are staggering. There's also an intriguing discussion in the report about the potential applications of this knowledge. The investigators speculate that if we can understand and even harness the mechanisms that allow consciousness to transition beyond death, it might open up entirely new avenues of research, not just in medicine and neuroscience, but in fields like quantum physics, psychology, and even philosophy. They suggest that unlocking the secrets of consciousness could eventually lead to technologies or therapies that extend human life, enhance mental capabilities, or even allow us to explore realms of experience that we currently only dream about. Of course, all of this is wrapped in a shroud of mystery. The document is, by necessity, highly redacted in many areas, with certain sections left deliberately vague. This only adds to the aura of enigma that surrounds the file. It's as if the investigators themselves were aware that they were on the cusp of something truly revolutionary, but perhaps weren't entirely sure how to present it to a world that might not be ready to hear the full truth. And that's where the real magic lies. Not just in the data or the theories, but in the invitation to think differently. The FBI document doesn't force its conclusions on the reader. Instead, it lays out a series of observations and questions that challenge us to explore our own beliefs about what it means to be alive. It asks us to consider the possibility that death is not a final destination, but a doorway to a much grander existence, one that connects us to a larger, more mysterious universe. In wrapping up our deep dive, it's important to recognize that while the document offers a fascinating glimpse into the possibilities of what happens after death, it is still just one piece of a much larger puzzle. Its findings, though provocative, are not definitive. They represent a snapshot of research conducted under conditions that are as extraordinary as the phenomenon they describe. And while they open up tantalizing avenues for further exploration, they also leave us with more questions than answers. What we're left with is a document that challenges the status quo, a file that forces us to confront the possibility that our understanding of life, death, and consciousness is far from complete. It's a call to action for further research, deeper inquiry, and a willingness to embrace the unknown. Whether you come away convinced by its claims or remain skeptical, one thing is clear. The FBI document is a powerful reminder that sometimes the greatest truths lie hidden in the most unexpected places, waiting for us to unlock their secrets. So, as we finish this deep dive, take a moment to reflect on the extraordinary possibilities it presents. Imagine that the spark of your consciousness isn't extinguished when your body dies, but is instead transformed, continuing on a journey that stretches far beyond the limits of our current understanding. It's a notion that can be both daunting and inspiring, urging us to look at our own lives with fresh eyes and a renewed sense of wonder. And ultimately, it's an invitation to join the ongoing quest to unravel one of the most enduring mysteries of our existence. What really happens after we die? Now that we've peeled back the layers of the FBI document and examined the wild claims it makes about death and the afterlife, it's time to zoom out and really dig into what this means on a grand scale. If what this file suggests is even half true, then the implications aren't just mind-blowing. They could fundamentally change the way we live, think, and organize our entire society. And that's what we're about to explore. Imagine a world where death isn't something to dread. A world where the end of your physical life isn't a final curtain call, but a shift, a transformation into a higher state of existence. Now pause and think about that for a minute. For centuries, every major institution, from governments to religions, has banked on our fear of death. They've built entire systems designed to keep us in line by convincing us that death is the ultimate unknown, a void that must be feared and avoided at all costs. But if this secret FBI document is telling us that death is more like a gateway than a dead end, then all of that control might just be based on a massive lie. Let's break this down a little further. For most of our lives, we're conditioned to believe that life is finite. We're taught that once our body stops working, that's it. The spark of consciousness is snuffed out, and we're gone. This narrative isn't just a casual opinion. It's a cornerstone of how society functions. Think about it. Our entire economic system, our social contracts, even our personal ambitions are all built on the idea that our time here is limited. We're pressured to work hard, to hoard wealth, and to avoid taking risks because we're scared of running out of time. Now, what if that underlying fear of death is exactly what keeps us stuck in a system that benefits those in power? According to the FBI document, when you die, your consciousness doesn't simply evaporate. Instead, it shifts into another state, a higher vibrational level where the energy that makes you, well, you, transforms and continues to exist. If you take a moment to wrap your head around that, you might start to see why this information would be so dangerous for established institutions. If people knew that death isn't the ultimate end, then the fear that has been used to manipulate us would start to crumble. And once that fear fades, imagine the kind of freedom and potential that could be unlocked. This isn't just a wild idea from conspiracy blogs or late-night radio shows. It's a perspective that's echoed in countless ancient cultures. The Egyptians, Hindus, Buddhists, and indigenous peoples around the world have long held that death is just a part of a larger cycle, a transition from one state of being to another. Their traditions teach that our souls or consciousness are eternal, and that what we experience in this life is merely one chapter in a much grander story. The FBI document, with its scientific-sounding language and experimental observations, seems to bridge these ancient beliefs with modern research. It suggests that what our ancestors intuitively knew might have a basis in reality after all. Now think about the power that comes with this kind of knowledge. If the public were to widely accept that death is a transformation rather than a termination, the entire fabric of society would begin to unravel. Consider religion, for instance. Many religious institutions have long promised eternal life or salvation as a reward for following their rules, effectively keeping people in a state of dependency and control. But if it became common knowledge that our consciousness simply continues on, unchained from the limitations of our physical bodies, the need for these external promises might just evaporate. People might start questioning the doctrines that have been drilled into them since childhood, realizing that the truth about life and death might lie within themselves rather than in the dogma imposed from the outside. Then there's the political and economic realm. Governments and corporations thrive on the status quo, a system built on consumerism, competition, and the constant hustle to beat the clock. This fear of an ending, of the unknown that comes with death, drives many of us to cling tightly to material possessions, to define our worth by our bank balances and our social status. But what happens when you introduce the idea that the energy of our consciousness is eternal, that death is nothing more than a shift in energy? Suddenly, the whole model of fear-driven consumption begins to look like a trap. If you're not afraid of the end, why would you spend your entire life chasing after things that ultimately don't matter? This kind of shift in perspective could spark a radical transformation, a move away from a society obsessed with accumulation and toward one focused on exploration, creativity, and genuine human connection. It's no secret that the way we're currently conditioned leaves many feeling trapped and unfulfilled. The constant fear of the unknown, particularly the unknown of death, is used as a tool to keep us in line. Media, education, and even our own families reinforce the notion that to question the established order is dangerous. We're led to believe that following the rules is the safest way to avoid the uncertainty of the future. But the FBI documents suggest that this fear might be nothing more than a carefully constructed illusion, a method to control us and keep us from reaching our full potential. When you start to consider that death is not an absolute end, but a doorway to a different state of being, you begin to see that the limitations imposed on you by society, by your upbringing, by your own fears, are just that. Limitations. They're not inherent truths of the universe. They're constructs designed to keep you from realizing your true power. And what is that power? It's the ability to shape your own destiny, to harness the eternal energy that flows through you, and to break free from the chains of a system built on fear and control. Let's get real for a minute. Imagine a society where people no longer lived in terror of death. Instead of trying desperately to cling to life, everyone would be more willing to take risks, follow their passions, and pursue creative, transformative projects. We'd see innovation on a whole new level, not just technological breakthroughs, but real progress in how we relate to each other and the world around us. The stigma attached to failure, the anxiety of not measuring up, and the crippling fear of making mistakes would all begin to fade away when you realize that the end of your life isn't the end of your story. In that society, life would be valued not by how much you accumulate or how long you live, but by how deeply you experience each moment and how boldly you step into the unknown. There's another angle to this too, and it's a bit more personal. Think about your own life. How often have you held back because you were paralyzed by the fear of losing everything? How many opportunities did you pass up because you were too scared to try something new, worried that a single misstep could be your undoing? If you could see death for what it might really be, a natural, transformative process rather than a terrifying end, wouldn't you start living differently? Wouldn't you begin to make choices based on passion and possibility instead of fear and limitation? The FBI document isn't just about revealing a hidden truth about what happens after we die. It's about shaking us out of the complacency that's been forced upon us for so long. And here's where it gets even more interesting. The potential implications of this knowledge stretch far beyond our personal lives and touch on the very nature of power itself. When fear is used as a tool of control, it becomes a currency that those in authority can trade with ease. If you're scared, you're less likely to question, less likely to rebel, and more likely to accept the status quo. But if that fear is replaced by a deep, resonant understanding of the eternal nature of your consciousness, then the power structures that depend on your fear begin to lose their grip. People start to see that they are not at the mercy of external forces, governments, corporations, or any institution that seeks to dictate how they should live their lives. Instead, they become the architects of their own destiny. This shift in awareness can be seen in the accounts of countless individuals who've had near-death experiences. They describe moments where, for a brief time, they were freed from the confines of their physical bodies, experiencing a state of pure consciousness that transcended time, space, and all the limitations that normally define human existence. These aren't isolated, hallucination-like episodes. They're consistent, recurring reports that suggest there is something very real happening when we approach the edge of death. And if these experiences are just the tip of the iceberg, imagine what the full, unfiltered truth might be. There are those who argue that such accounts are simply the result of a dying brain's desperate attempt to make sense of chaos. But if that were the whole story, wouldn't the experiences be wildly different from one person to the next? Instead, what we see is a remarkable consistency, stories of overwhelming peace, a sense of interconnectedness, and visions of a reality that is far more expansive than our physical world. This consistency hints at a universal truth, one that ancient cultures intuitively understood and that modern research is only now beginning to validate. Consider the possibility that our whole understanding of reality is based on an illusion, a projection created by our minds to help us navigate a finite existence. When you strip away the layers of social conditioning, the scientific dogma, and the religious narratives, you're left with a very simple yet profound idea. You are more than your physical body, and your consciousness is eternal. This idea is as old as humanity itself, whispered in the myths and legends of every culture. And if the FBI document is any indication, then the authorities have been aware of this truth for a long time. They just never wanted you to know it. The implications here are enormous. If we start to live with the understanding that death is merely a transition, then the fear that has governed every aspect of our lives begins to lose its power. Imagine a world where instead of obsessing over the idea of a final judgment, we embrace the notion of endless evolution, a reality where every end is just the start of something new and wondrous. In such a world, the pursuit of wealth, power, and status might give way to a quest for deeper knowledge, personal growth, and genuine human connection. People might be more inclined to help each other, collaborate on creative projects, and build communities that value collective evolution over individual competition. This isn't just an idealistic fantasy. It's a challenge to the way we currently structure our lives. Every aspect of modern society, from education to government, is steeped in the belief that life is a race against time, a finite resource that must be managed, controlled, and monetized. But if the fundamental nature of reality is as fluid and transformative as the FBI document suggests, then our entire system is built on a false premise. The idea that life is a countdown to a final moment of oblivion is nothing more than a tool used to keep us in a state of anxiety and submission. When you start to see that the energy of your consciousness is eternal, that death is not a grim finale, but a doorway to something far more profound, you begin to question every rule and every limitation imposed on you by society. The things that once seemed so critical, like accumulating wealth, climbing the corporate ladder, or even holding on to outdated traditions, suddenly lose their meaning. In their place, you find a sense of freedom, a realization that the true value of life lies in the experiences, the relationships, and the moments of genuine connection that we share with one another. Think about the potential for social change that such a paradigm shift could unleash. Without the constant underlying fear of death, people might start to live more authentically. They might pursue their passions without worrying about the repercussions, take risks that could lead to groundbreaking innovations, and build communities based on mutual respect and shared aspirations rather than on fear and control. The ripple effects of this kind of transformation would be monumental, not just on a personal level, but across entire societies and cultures. Moreover, the idea that our consciousness continues beyond physical death could reshape our entire approach to science and spirituality. Today, these fields are often seen as being at odds with each other, locked in a constant battle over which version of reality is the real one. But if we accept that the truth about life and death is far more complex than either side is willing to admit, then there's a tremendous opportunity for synthesis, a merging of the scientific method with the intuitive, holistic insights of spiritual traditions. This could lead to new breakthroughs in our understanding of the universe, breakthroughs that challenge everything we thought we knew about matter, energy, and the nature of existence itself. At its core, this knowledge is liberating. It tells us that we are not prisoners of fate, confined to a single, unchangeable existence. Instead, we are dynamic beings with the power to transcend the limitations of our physical forms. Every moment becomes a chance to tap into that infinite energy, to explore the vast landscapes of our inner worlds, and to create a reality that reflects our deepest aspirations and dreams. The implications are both deeply personal and profoundly societal. Imagine a generation that no longer lives in the shadow of death, but instead sees every ending as just another beginning. Now, let's not kid ourselves. The idea that death is merely a transition, that our consciousness is eternal, is a radical departure from the conventional narrative. And it's precisely because it challenges that narrative that it has been kept hidden for so long. The powers that be they governments, big corporations, or entrenched institutions, understand that control is easiest when people are paralyzed by fear. If you're constantly worried about the finality of death, you're less likely to question, to rebel, or to dream big. And that's the ultimate trick. By instilling a fear of the unknown, they keep you from ever seeing that you have the power to change your reality. So, what does this mean for you? It means that every time you feel weighed down by the fear of an ending, every moment you hesitate because you're scared of what might come next, you're allowing that same system of control to keep you locked in place. But the FBI document, and the countless stories of transformation it echoes, offers you a way out. It invites you to imagine a life where the limitations you've always accepted are nothing more than illusions. It challenges you to break free from the chains of outdated beliefs and to step into a reality where you can truly be free. If we start to internalize this truth, that death is not a morbid finale, but a vibrant, transformative process, the entire approach to life changes. You begin to see that every moment is imbued with the potential for growth, that every experience is a step on an endless journey of discovery. The choices you make, the risks you take, the passions you follow, they all become expressions of a deeper, more profound truth about who you are and what you're capable of. And here's the kicker. This isn't just theory or wishful thinking. It's a call to action, a challenge to awaken to the reality that has been hidden from you for far too long. It's about reclaiming your power, questioning everything you've been told, and embracing the possibility that you are far more than just a physical being on a limited timeline. It's about realizing that the truth about life and death is yours to discover, and that the moment you open your mind to that truth, nothing will ever be the same again. This is the broader implication of the FBI document and the hidden truths it unveils, the chance to fundamentally transform not only how you view death, but how you live your entire life. When you stop letting fear dictate your every decision, when you see that the boundaries imposed on you by society are mere constructs, you begin to live with a sense of wonder, creativity, and boundless possibility. And that's a revolution in itself, a revolution that starts in the heart and mind of every individual ready to break free. So, as you sit with these ideas and let them sink in, ask yourself, how much of your life has been dictated by the fear of an ending? How many dreams have you sidelined because you were too scared to risk it all? What would change if you truly believed that death is nothing but a gateway, a shift in energy that carries you into a realm of infinite possibilities? The answers to these questions might just be the key to unlocking a new way of living, a life where you're no longer held hostage by the past, by society's expectations, or by the paralyzing fear of what lies ahead. In the end, this isn't just about challenging old stories. It's about creating a future where you are empowered to take control of your destiny, where you can live boldly, and where every ending is celebrated as the start of something extraordinary. The hidden truths contained in this FBI document have the power to shatter the chains of fear and open your eyes to the vast, untapped potential of your own consciousness. And once you see that, you'll never look at life or death the same way again. All right, let's take a deep breath and really dive into the skeptic's corner. I know that when you hear wild claims like death is just a transition or consciousness continues on a higher vibrational plane, the first reaction is often, "This sounds like a load of pseudoscience." And trust me, you're not alone in thinking that. There are plenty of smart, rational people out there who are quick to dismiss these ideas as nothing more than overblown theories or wishful thinking. So, let's break it down and address these criticisms head-on. First off, a lot of critics point out that the language in the FBI document, terms like vibrational states, energy transference, and higher planes of consciousness, sounds more like something out of a science fiction movie than solid empirical science. They argue that while we all know energy can't be created or destroyed, thanks to the law of conservation of energy, it doesn't automatically follow that consciousness is just a form of energy that morphs into something else when we die. For many, the idea that our thoughts, memories, and sense of self could survive bodily death stretches the limits of what they consider reasonable. Skeptics often contend that consciousness is nothing more than the result of complex brain activity. Once the brain ceases to function, they argue, so does consciousness. They point to countless studies in neuroscience that show how specific brain regions are responsible for our thoughts, emotions, and even our sense of identity. In this view, when the brain stops working, the electrical impulses that generate consciousness simply stop, and with them, any experience of self-awareness. This brain-only perspective has a lot of traction. For decades, the scientific community has relied on neuroimaging and other forms of brain monitoring to map out how different areas of the brain correlate with specific functions. Researchers have found that when parts of the brain responsible for memory, emotion, or perception are damaged, corresponding aspects of consciousness can be impaired. It's a compelling argument. If we can point to a direct cause and effect relationship between brain activity and conscious experience, why should we believe that consciousness can exist without the brain? Many skeptics argue that near-death experiences, NDEs, and other reports of afterlife encounters can be explained by the dying brain's desperate scramble to make sense of the chaos. According to this view, as oxygen levels drop and the brain begins to shut down, it fires off random signals, which might create vivid hallucinations or dreamlike states. These experiences, though intense and deeply personal, are seen as the brain's final moments of activity, rather than proof of a continued consciousness. Another popular criticism is rooted in neurochemistry. Skeptics note that during extreme stress or near-death situations, the brain releases a cocktail of chemicals, endorphins, dopamine, and other neurotransmitters that can induce feelings of euphoria, detachment, or even visions of light and otherworldly realms. This surge in chemicals is thought to explain why some people report experiences of profound peace or encounters with bright, loving presences. In the skeptic's view, these are simply the natural byproducts of a brain in crisis rather than evidence of an actual shift to a higher plane of existence. Now, while these arguments are certainly compelling and well supported by decades of research, it's important to consider some counterpoints that have emerged over the years, points that suggest there might be more to the story than just brain activity. One of the most intriguing counterpoints comes from the consistent, cross-cultural reports of near-death experiences. Time and again, people from vastly different backgrounds and cultures report strikingly similar experiences when they've come close to death. They describe moving through tunnels, encountering beings of light, and feeling an overwhelming sense of unity and peace. Critics who stick strictly to the brain-only theory would expect these experiences to vary widely from person to person, depending on cultural background, personal beliefs, or even the level of medical care received. Instead, there's a remarkable consistency in these accounts that some argue can't be chalked up solely to the dying brain's biochemistry. There's also the matter of spontaneous veridical perceptions, instances where individuals, during near-death experiences, report accurate, detailed information about events or conversations happening in another part of the room. Some researchers have documented cases where a person undergoing an NDE later described events that they couldn't have possibly known about, given their clinical state. These instances, while rare, add a layer of mystery that challenges the purely material explanation of consciousness. Another alternative perspective comes from the realm of quantum physics. Some modern theorists suggest that at the quantum level, reality behaves in ways that defy our everyday experiences. Quantum mechanics introduces concepts like non-locality and entanglement, where particles can be connected across vast distances instantaneously. Although these ideas are far from being directly linked to human consciousness, they open the door to the possibility that our classical understanding of reality, and by extension consciousness, might be incomplete. Proponents of the idea that consciousness extends beyond the brain argue that if particles can be entangled and affect one another without direct physical contact, perhaps consciousness operates on a similar level. In this view, the mind might be part of a larger, interconnected field of energy, a concept that resonates with the language used in the FBI document. While this is certainly a speculative leap, it's a leap that many find tantalizing. If consciousness is indeed a fundamental aspect of the universe, akin to space or time, then it might not be as bound by the physical limitations of the brain as we once thought. There's also an important institutional angle to consider. The FBI document we're discussing isn't floating in a vacuum. It's part of a broader context of government research into phenomena that many scientists consider fringe. Projects like the CIA's Gateway process and other declassified files on psychic phenomena and altered states of consciousness provide a backdrop that challenges the mainstream scientific narrative. These documents suggest that at least some government agencies were willing to entertain the possibility that the human mind might be capable of more than we can currently explain. Critics of the mainstream view point out that if such research was conducted under the highest levels of secrecy, there might be reasons why this knowledge was hidden from the public. Was it because it was too groundbreaking? Or perhaps because it challenged the foundational beliefs upon which modern society is built? The secrecy surrounding these projects has fueled countless debates and conspiracy theories, with some arguing that the suppression of such research is an effort to maintain the status quo, one in which fear of the unknown, especially the unknown of death, is used as a tool for control. Let's not forget the wealth of historical and cultural evidence that points to a belief in the continuity of consciousness. For thousands of years, cultures around the world have maintained that death is not an end, but a transformation, a transition from one state of being to another. The ancient Egyptians, for example, built elaborate tombs and performed intricate burial rituals because they believed in an afterlife where the soul continued its journey. Similarly, many Eastern traditions like Hinduism and Buddhism view life as a continuous cycle of death and rebirth, with each death serving as a doorway to the next stage of existence. These ancient beliefs might seem like quaint superstitions to some, but they also represent a body of collective wisdom that has persisted across millennia. In many ways, the FBI document echoes these age-old ideas, though couched in modern, pseudo-scientific terminology. For those who have experienced or studied near-death phenomena, the convergence of ancient wisdom with modern research can be profoundly compelling. It suggests that the ideas our ancestors held might have been more than mere myth. They could be reflections of a fundamental truth about human existence. So how do we reconcile these two seemingly disparate worlds? The strict materialist view of consciousness as solely a byproduct of brain activity, and the alternative perspective that sees consciousness as a more expansive, possibly eternal force. The truth is, we might not have all the answers just yet, and that's okay. What's important is that we keep an open mind. It's entirely possible that the nature of consciousness is far more complex than any one theory can explain. Consider this. In science, theories evolve. What was once considered impossible can become accepted fact as new evidence comes to light. The same could be true for our understanding of consciousness. Just as the heliocentric model of the solar system eventually replaced the geocentric view, so too might our current, limited understanding of the mind give way to a broader, more nuanced perspective. Until we have definitive proof, something that remains elusive given the deeply personal and subjective nature of consciousness, we're left with a fascinating, if unresolved, debate. This brings us to a crucial point. Questioning is not only healthy, it's essential. Skepticism, in its true form, is not about dismissing new ideas outright. It's about critically examining evidence, challenging assumptions, and being willing to change one's perspective when the facts demand it. In the case of the FBI document and the idea that consciousness survives death, healthy skepticism means not taking things at face value, but also not dismissing them without careful consideration. For instance, if we were to simply brush off near-death experiences as mere hallucinations, we might be ignoring a wealth of evidence that could point to a deeper, more profound reality. The consistency of these experiences across different cultures and individuals suggests that there's something real there, a phenomenon that warrants further investigation rather than outright dismissal. And if, after extensive research, we find that the materialist explanation falls short, isn't it worth considering the possibility that there's more to consciousness than meets the eye? There are also countless personal stories and anecdotal accounts that challenge the conventional view of consciousness. People who have had near-death experiences often describe them with such vivid detail and emotional intensity that it's hard to imagine they're nothing more than the result of dying brain chemistry. These accounts are sometimes met with ridicule or skepticism by the scientific community, but they continue to persist, echoing similar themes of love, unity, and transcendence. Some individuals even report spontaneous veridical perceptions, experiences where they accurately describe events or details from a distance, even when they were clinically dead. While these instances are rare and difficult to study under controlled conditions, they add another layer to the discussion. Could it be that these experiences are glimpses into a reality that extends beyond our physical bodies? Or are they simply the brain's desperate attempt to create order in chaos? The fact remains that they challenge the conventional narrative and force us to ask, what if the truth is far more complex than we've been led to believe? In recent years, advances in technology have allowed us to probe deeper into the mysteries of consciousness. Neuroimaging, brainwave analysis, and even experiments in altered states of consciousness have provided tantalizing hints that the mind might operate on levels we're only beginning to understand. For example, studies on meditation and mindfulness have shown that long-term practitioners can alter their brain activity in ways that suggest a shift in how they experience reality. These findings, while not definitive proof of an afterlife, do indicate that the brain, and perhaps the mind, is more malleable than previously thought. Moreover, research into quantum consciousness, though still in its infancy, raises questions about the nature of reality itself. Some theorists propose that our conventional understanding of space and time might be incomplete, hinting at the possibility that consciousness could be a fundamental aspect of the universe, much like energy or matter. While these ideas remain speculative, they provide a conceptual framework that challenges the notion that the mind is solely a byproduct of physical processes in the brain. At the end of the day, addressing skepticism isn't about choosing sides or declaring one viewpoint as definitively right or wrong. It's about opening the door to inquiry, questioning the assumptions that underpin our understanding, and being willing to entertain ideas that might initially seem outlandish. In doing so, we pave the way for breakthroughs that can reshape our understanding of life and death. There's a famous saying that The measure of intelligence is the ability to change. If we're truly intelligent, and if we genuinely seek the truth, we have to be willing to adapt our views when confronted with compelling evidence. The claims in the FBI document, the accounts of near-death experiences, and the alternative research into consciousness all serve as reminders that our current understanding of these phenomena might be just the tip of the iceberg. They challenge us to think bigger, to question what we've been told, and to remain curious about the mysteries of existence. Now, I'm not suggesting that we should abandon all skepticism and accept every wild claim at face value. Healthy skepticism remains a crucial part of the scientific process. We need to demand rigorous evidence, repeatable experiments, and logical coherence before we revise our worldviews. But at the same time, we must acknowledge that some of the most profound truths in history were once dismissed as absurd until enough evidence emerged to force a paradigm shift. Consider the evolution of our understanding of the cosmos. For centuries, the idea that Earth was not the center of the universe was met with staunch resistance. It took time, evidence, and a willingness to question entrenched beliefs before we could accept that the universe was vast, dynamic, and far more mysterious than our ancestors imagined. The exploration of consciousness and the possibility of an afterlife might follow a similar trajectory. A slow, often contentious journey toward a more complete understanding of our place in the cosmos. What's really important in this conversation is dialogue. Instead of dismissing alternative perspectives outright, we need to engage with them, scrutinize them, and see where the evidence leads us. The FBI document, the near-death accounts, and the myriad personal stories of transcendence all contribute to a broader conversation about what it means to be alive, what it means to die, and whether our consciousness truly continues beyond the physical realm. In many ways, this dialogue isn't just academic, it's deeply personal. It forces us to confront our own mortality, our fears, and our beliefs about what happens when we close our eyes for the last time. And while that can be an unsettling thought, it also opens up the possibility for liberation. Imagine a world where we're not paralyzed by the fear of death, where we can embrace the mystery of existence with open hearts and curious minds. That's the kind of future that a more expansive understanding of consciousness could help create. One of the most humbling lessons from all of this is that uncertainty is a part of life. There are some questions, like what happens after we die, that may never have a definitive, universally accepted answer. And that's okay. The beauty of these mysteries is that they compel us to keep searching, keep questioning, and keep pushing the boundaries of our understanding. By addressing skepticism and alternative perspectives head-on, we're not trying to force everyone into one way of thinking. Instead, we're acknowledging that there's a vast spectrum of possibilities out there, some that align with conventional science, and others that challenge it. In doing so, we invite everyone, skeptics, believers, and curious wanderers alike, to join in the exploration of one of humanity's greatest mysteries. Ultimately, whether you lean more toward the materialist view or the idea that consciousness continues on a higher plane, there's common ground to be found in the pursuit of truth. Both perspectives are driven by a deep desire to understand the nature of our existence and to find meaning in the face of the unknown. And while the methods and interpretations might differ, the quest for knowledge unites us all. So, as you reflect on the criticisms and counter-arguments, remember that healthy debate is a sign of progress. Every question asked, every challenge raised, is a step toward a more complete picture of reality. And if nothing else, the very act of questioning forces us to re-examine our assumptions, break free from outdated narratives, and dare to imagine a future where the mysteries of life and death are not feared, but embraced. To wrap this up, let's circle back to the core message. Yes, there are valid reasons to be skeptical of the claims made in the FBI document and similar research. But skepticism should not close our minds. It should propel us forward, in our search for understanding. The idea that death is merely a transition and that our consciousness continues beyond the physical realm may challenge conventional science, but it also resonates with the timeless wisdom of ancient cultures and the compelling personal stories of those who have glimpsed something beyond. As we continue to explore these ideas, let's do so with both caution and wonder. Let's demand evidence, yes, but also be open to the possibility that the universe is far more mysterious than our textbooks suggest. Whether you remain firmly in the camp of material science, or you find yourself intrigued by the idea of a consciousness that transcends death, the important thing is that we keep the conversation alive. In the end, addressing skepticism and alternative perspectives isn't about proving one side right and the other wrong. It's about embracing the complexity of the truth. It's about recognizing that our current understanding might be incomplete, and that there's always more to learn. And if there's one thing this journey has taught us, it's that the quest for truth is as infinite as the consciousness we're trying to understand. So, let's keep questioning, keep exploring, and keep pushing the boundaries of what we think we know. Because in the end, it's not about having all the answers. It's about daring to ask the questions that could change everything. Now, let's talk about what all of this means for you. Yes, you watching this right now. Imagine if the truth about what happens after death isn't something to be feared, but something to be celebrated. What if, instead of living in terror of the unknown, you could see death as just another phase in your personal journey, a chance to evolve, to learn, and to grow into a version of yourself that's even more powerful than you ever imagined? I'm not here to preach some abstract philosophy. I'm talking about real, tangible change. The secret FBI document we've been discussing suggests that the power to transcend the physical limits of our existence lies within us. When you start to understand that death is simply a transition, an energy shift rather than an end, you begin to see that life itself is full of endless possibilities. Your consciousness is not tied down to a single lifetime. It's part of something much larger, something that stretches far beyond the confines of your physical body. For many people, the idea of death triggers fear, a fear of the unknown, of losing everything we hold dear. But what if that fear is exactly what has been keeping you trapped? Think about it. If you could free yourself from the terror of mortality, wouldn't you live every moment with a little more passion, a little more purpose? Imagine making decisions not out of fear, but out of excitement for what might lie ahead. That's the kind of transformation this knowledge can spark. I want you to take a moment and reflect on your own life. Have you ever felt like you're just going through the motions, held back by an invisible chain of limitations? What if those limitations are not real at all, that they're simply the byproduct of a system designed to keep you small and controlled? When you start to peel back the layers of fear and conditioning, you realize that you have the power to shape your own destiny. The FBI document is more than just an intriguing file from government archives. It's a wake-up call. Countless people who have had near-death experiences describe them as moments of profound clarity. They speak of a deep sense of peace, a feeling that the burdens of everyday life suddenly lift away, and an overwhelming realization that the material world is just a small piece of a much grander puzzle. These aren't isolated incidents. They are echoes of a universal truth that has been whispered throughout the ages, that you are so much more than just your physical form. And here's the real kicker. Once you start to understand and embrace this truth, everything changes. You begin to see that the boundaries imposed on you by society, by culture, by your own mind, are nothing more than illusions. With this newfound awareness, you unlock the ability to tap into higher states of consciousness. You can begin to explore techniques like meditation, lucid dreaming, and even practices that encourage out-of-body experiences. These aren't just fringe ideas. They're practical tools that can help you break free from a system that's designed to keep you distracted, fearful, and under control. Imagine living a life where you're not constantly weighed down by the fear of death, where every moment is an opportunity to explore the vast potential of your mind. That's the promise of this knowledge. It's about reclaiming your power and stepping into a reality where you are free to be your true self, unbound by the chains of a limited material world. I know it might sound like something out of a science fiction movie, but the evidence is right in front of us. The secret FBI document, the accounts of near-death experiences, and even the cutting-edge theories of modern physics all point to the same thing. Death is not a final goodbye. It's a transition, a metamorphosis that offers a glimpse into the eternal nature of our being. So I challenge you. Start questioning everything you've been told about life and death. Don't settle for the surface-level explanations that are handed to you every day. Dig deeper, ask the tough questions, and be open to the possibility that what you think you know might just be the tip of the iceberg. Because once you start looking beyond the veil, you might just find that the truth is far more amazing and far more liberating than you ever imagined. All right, we've come a long way, and now it's time to wrap this up with the ultimate revelation. Let's bring everything together and ask the big final question. What if death isn't an ending at all, but the start of something incredible? Let's recap what we've uncovered so far. The secret FBI document tells us that when you die, your consciousness doesn't just flicker out, it shifts, it transforms, and it moves on to a higher state of existence. This isn't just some abstract theory. It's backed up by accounts of near-death experiences, scientific theories from quantum physics, and even ancient wisdom that has guided civilizations for millennia. If you take a step back and really think about it, everything we've been led to believe about death might just be a carefully constructed lie, a way to keep us docile, fearful, and easily controlled. Now here's where it gets really wild. Imagine a world where we all knew that death was nothing to be feared, a world where the finality of our existence was replaced by the promise of transformation and renewal. What would that mean for society, for our personal lives, for the way we approach everything from relationships to careers to our own dreams and aspirations? If we truly embrace the idea that death is a transition, a doorway into a broader, richer existence, then the old rules of society would start to crumble. The institutions that thrive on fear, the governments, the corporations, the religious organizations that have for centuries manipulated our fears to keep us in line, would lose their grip on us. Because once you know that death is just another part of your journey, you realize that life is far too precious and vast to be limited by outdated narratives and control mechanisms. This is the ultimate truth that the FBI document hints at. It's the idea that our consciousness is eternal, that the energy that makes us who we are is simply shifting into a different form when we die. And if that's true, then every moment of our lives is imbued with infinite possibility. No longer are we bound by the fear of an ending. We are free to explore, to evolve, and to truly live. Now, I'm not here to tell you that everything is settled or that we have all the answers. In fact, the more you dig into this subject, the more questions you'll find. But that's the beauty of it. The mystery of what happens after death isn't something that can be locked away in a neat little box. It's an ever-expanding frontier of human experience. And each of us has the power to explore that frontier, to break free from the chains of conventional thinking, and to discover a reality that is far more vibrant and dynamic than we ever imagined. So here's my challenge to you. Don't just sit back and accept the mainstream narrative. Question it, explore it, and most importantly, allow yourself to imagine that there's more to life and death than what you've been told. Because once you start to see that death is not a terminal point but a transformative process, you'll never be able to look at the world the same way again. Ask yourself, what would you do if you knew that the end was just the beginning? How would your life change if you could let go of the fear that has held you back for so long? And most importantly, What do you think is waiting on the other side of that door? These aren't just philosophical musings. They're questions that have the power to change your entire perspective on life. The truth is, the moment you break free from the illusion that death is the end, you unlock a part of yourself that has been waiting to be set free. That inner power, that unquenchable spark of consciousness, is what makes you truly alive. And once you embrace it, you realize that you are far more than just a physical body. You are a being of energy, of light, capable of transcending time and space. So as we stand here on the brink of this incredible revelation, I leave you with this final thought. What if everything you thought you knew about death was just a lie? What if the real secret isn't about what happens after you die, but about what you can do with the power of your consciousness while you're still alive? The FBI document might just be the key that opens the door to a whole new way of thinking, a way that empowers you to take control of your destiny, free from the chains of fear and limitation. We've covered a lot of ground today, and if there's one thing I want you to take away, it's this: life is way too precious to be spent in fear of the unknown. The secret FBI document we've explored isn't just a relic of government archives, it's a wake-up call for all of us. It challenges the old stories we've been told about death and forces us to confront the possibility that our consciousness is eternal, that death is not an end, but a new beginning. I know this isn't your typical feel-good message, but it's real, it's raw, and it's a message that needs to be heard if we're ever going to break free from the limitations that have been imposed on us. Once you start to see that the fear of death is just a tool used by those in power to keep you in line, you realize that you have the power to change everything. You can start living with a new sense of purpose, a deeper understanding of who you really are, and an unshakable belief in the infinite potential of your mind. So what comes next? I encourage you to keep questioning, keep exploring, and keep seeking the truth about your own existence. Don't stop here. This is just the beginning. There's a whole world of hidden knowledge out there, waiting to be uncovered. And as you dive deeper into these mysteries, you'll find that every answer only leads to more questions, more possibilities, and more ways to reclaim your freedom. I invite you to join a community of like-minded seekers who aren't content with the status quo, a community that's dedicated to exploring the limits of human consciousness and breaking free from the chains of outdated beliefs. Together, we can share our experiences, learn from one another, and build a future where fear is no longer the master of our lives. This is your call to action. Question everything, embrace your inner power, and never stop seeking the truth. As we wrap up this journey, remember that the knowledge we've uncovered today is more than just a series of claims and theories. It's a pathway to liberation. The FBI document might have been hidden away for decades, but its revelations are here for all of us to see. And once you open your mind to the possibility that death is not the end, you'll never be the same again. Thank you for joining me on this wild ride. If what you've heard resonates with you, if you're ready to step into a reality where your consciousness is truly free, then share your thoughts, spread the word, and keep exploring. The journey doesn't end here. It's just the start of a new chapter in our collective quest for truth and freedom. Stay curious, stay awake, and remember, the end of your physical life is not the end of your story. It's just the beginning of something much, much greater.